was a moment in my life where everything that I thought was real cracked open. It wasn't something scary. It was something much deeper inside that was trying to show itself to me, trying to reveal itself. Before this moment, I was an average person, 21 years old, worked as a bar manager. I became an atheist because, to me, I needed proof for anything. It made much more sense in my mind that what you see is what you get, and unless you can prove otherwise, there's nothing more to life. So I just thought this was some kind of big accident or big coincidence, a once in a lifetime event, and this would never happen again. And we are very lucky, or should feel very lucky, to be experiencing what we are. At this moment in my life felt normal, everything felt normal, but there was this deeper urge and this deeper desire to want to know if there was more to life than what I could see, because I had experiences throughout my life which were not quite normal, but also could potentially be explained with science. But I always had a pull, an urge, a wanting, like I said, a desire to know if there was something more. I always felt from when I was a child that there was something that we wasn't being told, or something that I knew deep inside of me, but I couldn't quite work out. And that hunger led to me knocking and looking for answers and searching through information to try and find this thing that I was missing, that I knew existed. Before this moment happened, I always deep down did know that life wasn't what it appeared to be, but my logical mind was telling me it's just what you see and there's nothing more to it. But I couldn't help but be curious. I couldn't help but be a child and want to explore and want to dive feet first, without fear, into the unknown to try and find out what this was. I always found that everyone around me growing up was kind of not asking these deep questions and these philosophical questions, and I felt kind of lonely, kind of on my own. I could have a few conversations that were light or that were on the surface, but I felt like no one ever could go into the depths, into the questions that I was asking myself. And I felt like I was kind of on this journey alone and had to find these answers on my own. And then at the age of 21, something happened. Something massive, something life-changing, something that completely ripped who I thought I was and what I thought this was apart. My awareness expanded beyond anything I could ever imagine. It became infinite, limitless. It completely dissolved my identity of who I thought I was. These attachments and labels that I put on myself throughout my life that made me who I was in that moment completely disappeared. This expanded infinite dimension, this expanded infinite awareness completely stripped who I was away and threw me into the depths of source, what I call now source, which is just us. What it felt like to become pure awareness was lonely. It was just me on my own. That's how I felt in the moment. I felt completely alone. It didn't matter who I could speak to. It didn't matter who I could call. It didn't matter who I would think about, what memories that were the best memories of my life brought to me. They didn't bring anything to me in that moment. Everything was just awareness and only awareness. It was just a stillness, a silence. But in this stillness and silence, I knew it was truth. It was more real than anything I'd ever called or thought of as real in my whole life. The way I kind of describe it and explain it is when you're in a dream and you go about your dream doing whatever you have to do, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, that was just a dream. And when you wake, this experience is so much more real than that dream. You totally disregard that dream. This infinite expanded dimension of awareness that I became felt like this life that we're living now is the dream. That's how I knew it to be true. That's how I knew it was truth. And that's what I was struggling with in that moment. I couldn't understand or even want to understand in that moment why something was more real than my life. I didn't want to know that. I tried to battle with that in my mind and try to get rid of it, and I couldn't. It was like being shown a mirror, but the reflection was me at my core, with everything stripped, and it terrified me. But that terror was undeniably the truth, and I knew that I couldn't unknow what I knew. I knew that I couldn't unplug what I was plugged into. I knew I couldn't unsee what was seen. And part of me, or a lot of me, really struggled with that, because I knew myself as Sasha, this 21-year-old who enjoyed playing football, who enjoyed going out with his friends, who enjoyed the odd drink and the odd laugh and joke. And suddenly I wasn't Sasha. I was pure awareness, limitless, infinite, and on my own. There was no doubt in my mind in this moment that I knew that this reality wasn't physical. It wasn't the physical reality that I've always thought it was. It wasn't the hard exterior where you touch something and you feel it and you know it's real. That all disappeared. In fact, it made me realize it wasn't real at all. It wasn't physically real. It made me understand that this life that we call life was just a dream. Looking back now, I realised that in that moment, I knew but couldn't articulate or couldn't fully understand that it was just consciousness in form. It was consciousness creating form. And I understood this by knowing that when you go to sleep and you dream and you physically touch something in that dream and it feels real, and even the dream feels real when you're in there, and you wake up and you're like, I just lived a whole life there. That dream was so real. I could touch, I could smell. That's what this is. Just a more realistic version of your own dream. And what I've come to understand is source, or the infinite energy, whatever you want to call that, whatever label you want to put on that, you can call it God. God is literally just sleeping, but it's not asleep. It's consciously awake. It's imagining realities into existence, and it's focused its attention into these realities, and it's experiencing these realities, which you could call dreams, you could call them realities. It's experiencing them as itself, but through unique lenses. So everything is imagination. Just as you go to sleep and you create this dream scenario and you focus your attention in, and then you become form, or a body within that dream. That's exactly what is happening here. And I know now that the soul is an individual lens or individual unique perspective of source. Wording can get really complicated, and this is why I kind of hate labels, and I don't like labeling anything, because there's kind of no words for it. I'm doing my best to kind of explain to everyone what the best way is to describe my understanding of existence. And how I see it is, source is everything. It's focused its attention into imagined creations, and within those creations it has bodies, and it's focused its attention into those bodies. And it's almost like the more it's focused in, the deeper it focuses in, the less awareness it has. And this awakening, what people call awakening, isn't an awakening, it's a remembering. You don't awaken to something greater. You don't awaken to source. You remember that you're source, but as an individual, unique expression of source. You are focused in as source, but no other soul is the same as you. So although every soul is everything, every soul is also themselves. And it's not to say you've got two bodies. You all are source, you're one thing, but you will always be forever your unique expression of source. And that's what a soul is. And in the moment that I experienced this awareness, there was fear. But looking back now, I know it wasn't danger. It wasn't like a dangerous feeling. It wasn't terror, as I do explain it. It was just my human self trying to adjust to this expanded awareness. It was my identity reacting to something it considered outside of itself. And I didn't understand why I was experiencing this expanded awareness or this infinite dimension of consciousness. It didn't add up at the time. So I didn't want to be that. I wanted to be me. But like I said, now I realize that is me. In the moments where I was experiencing this, there was a sliver of hope. And this sliver of hope is what has led to me remembering who I am today and wanting to spread a positive message of sovereignty, fearlessness, power, and love. And there was a moment where I surrendered in this experience. And in that surrendering, in my letting go of all of my attachments and labels and my identity, when I completely let go of all of my anchors, I experienced pure bliss, an ecstasy that I can't describe. It was like home. It was like the safest place or safest feeling you could ever experience. It was a relief. It was a complete letting go and a relief that I finally could let go and just be myself. And then, of course, my human mind kicked in and wanted to fight against it again. So it turned into terror. But like I said, that sliver of bliss has always stuck with me and kept the curiosity and the hunger in me to find out more. After this experience and maintaining this fearful state that I maintained for months and potentially years, I eventually realized that I had this urge to want again, to want to be me again, the me that died in that moment. I wanted that back. So I started going out more with my friends. I started being more present with my family. I started enjoying myself. I started to do all the things that we do, silly things, stupid things, fun things, happy things, exciting things. I tried to do everything just to get that human feeling back. And in that moment, I realized what love was, what true love was. And it was the love of experience, just any kind of experience. We take for granted as humans the fact that we can feel, the fact that we can see, the fact that we can touch, the fact that we can talk to someone else. We take for granted the smallest things. And these small things are what's the most important in life. They are what Source wants to experience. Source is everything. It's just awareness. So to experience something that it isn't is the best thing that it can do. To touch, to feel, to speak, to run, to drink, to eat, to taste. It's the best thing that it can do because it's just awareness. So I realized that this is why Source has created what it's created. It wants to experience what it isn't. And I want to tell everyone that this is why you should love your lives. Love every single moment of your life. Love everything that you do. All the good things, all the bad things, all of it is expression, all of it is experience. And I've realized now that the fear that I had in that moment, it wasn't coming from the truth that I was being shown. It was coming from my identity, my grasp, my anchor, my feeling that I should be this accumulation that I've created. That's where the fear come from. And what I think I struggled with the most wasn't the experience itself. Of course, I struggled with that. That whole 8-hour experience was really difficult for me. But the hardest thing for me was actually coming back into my human life and trying to be a human again. Because that didn't take hours or days. That took months and years. And trying to feel normal again, trying to feel like someone else again, I was pretending to laugh at jokes just to feel like human, just because I wanted to laugh again. But everything was kind of unimportant and irrelevant to me at the time because I just experienced this whole expanded infinite dimension of awareness. And I was thinking, well, what's the point? But now I know it's all the point, and it's the point forever. The whole point is experience, and it's to fully be involved in that experience and focus your attention into every single experience that you can, to fully be present in the moment And that's where unconditional love comes in and comes through. When you are 100% authentically your true self and are 100% present in each moment, experiencing it like it's a brand new moment without attaching labels or anything to it, and just feeling it and being it, that is when you fully love life and the experience. That is what it's all about. But when I was trying to adjust to being human again, it was so hard for me to be myself because I wasn't myself anymore. I was this new person. I've been thrown into the deep end. I've been thrown into literally infinite expanded awareness. And then I was expected to just be me again. It was impossible. So I had to start from scratch. I had to start as a new human being with this new level of perception of everything. So it completely turned me upside down. But the beautiful thing about this is that I was able to start again from scratch. I could let go of my old self. It was like shedding an old skin. And I was able to build who I wanted to be and who I've always wanted to become from true authenticity. I learned how to listen to my intuition and listen to what I wanted. And I learned how to compartmentalize my thoughts. So anything that came to my mind, instead of thinking, oh, that's bad of me for thinking that, I just pause and I'd think, no, that's not me. That's not what I think. That's just a thought. So I disregarded the thought and I followed my intuition and I followed the thoughts that aligned with me. And that made me become the person that I am today. And I'm still doing that today. If something doesn't align, if something doesn't resonate or feel true to me, I disregard it. And this changed everything in my life. Everyone around me saw this huge change. My family, my parents, the closest people around me, they all told me that I'd changed. They knew I'd changed, but they couldn't quite understand how or why. I knew why, but I couldn't articulate it to them. I didn't feel like not only would they not be able to understand, but they couldn't understand. They couldn't listen. They couldn't take it in. I couldn't even give them everything because they might think, this is too much. Does he need to seek help? So I had to keep all this to myself and bottle it in. And I had to just try to figure out this new life and try to navigate my life now from this new perspective with this new and build this new personality. But like I said, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I often describe this experience as the worst thing that happened to me and the best. But with every death comes a birth. Death doesn't exist. It's just a transition. I've learned so much about death now. There's so many different types of deaths you can have. Death isn't even real. It shouldn't even be called death. It's literally a transition. And this transition totally formed my new life. The people that I met, the new circle that I got, the job changes that I had, the relationships that I got involved with, everything changed for me. And it was for the better. So after all of this, what I realized is this: awakening isn't becoming anything. It's remembering who you really are. And when I say remembering, because I use it a lot, remembering isn't about retrieving an old memory. Remembering is about knowing deep in your gut when you hear something or feel something or get intuition or a download or a knowing, when you know that deep in your gut that that's true, you're literally becoming more of your true self. You're remembering in that moment, because you have to think, in infinity, there is no past or future. There is only the now. So you can't retrieve an old memory. When you're remembering, you are aligning with your true self, with your soul, with source. You all need to know that you're not separate. You're not some random person that's been born or thrown into this physical world. You are awareness, experiencing itself as a unique expression of source, which we know and we call a soul. And when you start to remember, you're not being awakened to something outside. The truth is coming from within and rising. That's what's happening when you start to remember and you notice it and you feel it and you know in your core that it's truth. That's why I've said before, when someone speaks truth, I know it to be true because it just hits. And a big one is, fear is just your human mind reacting to something that to it is unknown, but it's not something unknown. Your soul knows everything. So fear is your human mind reacting to something your soul already knows. When you sleep, your body sleeps, but your soul doesn't. You're always awake. You're always exploring. You're always traveling throughout infinite realities, infinite creations. And I speak about OBEs, which is out of body experiences. I speak about lucid dreams, but I hate labels. I really do. I've said it so many times. And the reason why is because you're not leaving your body when you have an OBE. You are awareness. You're a focal point of awareness. You're just shifting your focus and attention from one state to another. That's what you always do. You just shift your focus from one state to another. So people are fearful of having OBEs, but you do it every night. You shift your focus when you go to sleep. And you even transition from dream landscapes to different dream landscapes. You're shifting your focus. All it is shifting focus into a new experience. I know people need to try and understand this with words, which is why there are labels such as out-of-body experience, astral projection. But this is my goal. It's to try to strip the labels and try to give you the raw truth of what I know to be true in my words. Even though it's kind of impossible to articulate it, experience is the best articulation. Experience is the best way that you can understand. But I'm trying to give everyone the best understanding that I can. And I want to make one thing very clear. I've noticed that my message is getting misunderstood. And my message isn't meant to cause fear at all, or even make you think that you lose individuality. You don't lose yourself ever. You will always be you. I just want you to understand that you aren't the layers and the accumulation of the labels and the identity that you've created in this experience. You aren't that. That's what you need to drop, because you are so much more than this confined space that you've created in your mind for who you are. This space that you've created of who you are, that is just temporary. You are an expression of Source itself. You are a soul, an infinite, all-powerful, limitless soul. And every soul is that. One consciousness, but expressed through countless individual perspectives. So yes, everything is one. Each soul is a distinct expression of that one, with its own signature, its own essence that never disappears. And I need you all to know that you do not lose yourself after death. You remember more of who you are. You expand into your true self. You don't lose yourself. It's an unfolding, not a dissolving. So please take those words and know them to be true from me, from my experience. Because this life that you're experiencing, this reality, it's one grain of sand on an infinite beach. And when this chapter ends, you don't disappear, you shift your focus and attention into a new experience. Just like how sleep moves your awareness into another state each night, into a new experience, that's exactly what happens with death. Only it's an uninterrupted shift. There's no anchor. There's no anchor to the human self anymore. You're not anchored to this reality. You continue, you remember, and you reunite with all of the souls that you love and always have loved and always will love. With that said, I'm going to end this here with one final note. This was the moment that everything changed for me. And if you're remembering too, you're not alone. We're all doing this together. Every single human, every single soul is doing this together in our own way. To everyone who's been here from the start, and to anyone new who's finding this, I appreciate you genuinely. And if you want to go deeper, if you want to access my guide, if you want to join our community, our private community, or our conversations, it's all linked below, only if it feels right. Either way, thank you so much for being here.